Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're stepping right onto the dark, atmospheric stage of a truly grim fable. Today, we're going to decode the profound, almost terrifying philosophical transformation of a solitary wanderer into what the source text calls a little god. And look, this isn't just a spooky campfire story. It is a masterful exploration of how we confront the absolute void, structured perfectly around the framework of philosopher Johann Gottlieb Fichte. It's dark, it's intense, and it's honestly incredibly fascinating. Let's get into it.
Have your victory, little god. Just hearing that chilling parting line sets this perfect graphic novel kind of tone for our existential journey today. I mean, it sounds like a triumph on the surface, right? But as we unpack this text, you'll see that this victory is actually dripping with ancient condescension. It's this haunting acknowledgement of newfound power wrapped entirely in a stark reminder of utter cosmic insignificance.
To really appreciate the dramatic weight here, we're structuring our explainer like a classic theatrical play. We'll move through Act 1, The Living Abyss, Act 2, The Internal Fire, and Act 3, Three Dark Spectators. After that, we'll hit the absolute synthesis and wrap up with The Rise of the Little God.
So, Act 1, The Living Abyss. Let's set our stage and look at the environment our wanderer is stepping into.
In this fable, the uncanny forest is absolutely not just spooky background scenery. It acts as an additional, living, horrific character that actively participates in the trial. It represents Fichte's concept of the absolute not I. Now, in Fichtean philosophy, the not I is literally everything that is not the self. It's the external world, the unyielding obstacles, the brutal, fundamental realities that define the limits of our existence. The phantoms lurking in this forest are the structural laws of the abyss made manifest. They are the eternal boundary markers of the cosmos. So you don't just swing a sword and defeat them in a conventional heroic triumph. To survive, you have to fundamentally change your relationship to them.
And this clash brilliantly illustrates the Fichtean dialectic at play in our narrative arc. Step 1 is the absolute I, which is the wanderer asserting his own self. Step 2 is the absolute not I, where the uncanny forest pushes back with the infinite weight of the void. And step 3 is the synthesis. Instead of one destroying the other, they forge a totally unified reality. It becomes the little god's shared sovereignty. The self and the world clash, and a completely new reality is forged from the wreckage.
Which brings us to Act 2, The Internal Fire, where things get intensely, violently physical.
We witness exactly how this synthesis happens, and it is intense. The wanderer realizes he cannot just coldly analyze his way out of the abyss. He has to bypass the cold stasis of perfect data and find a completely different primal source of power. He makes the radical choice to embrace self-destruction. His veins literally harden into burning copper, and his eyes ignite with ash through what the text calls a willing, holy autophagy. Basically, he is consuming his own being to survive. He converts his mortal pulse into an unyielding, self-sustaining furnace. He recognizes that to rule the dark, he has to actually become part of its horrific and beautiful architecture.
But let's pause for a second, right? Because this is a highly abstract, grim myth. To truly grasp the weight of this story, we have to ask ourselves how conquering this laboratory of nothingness mirrors our own lives. What does it actually mean for us to ignite an internal fire of burning copper when the world around us feels like an absolute void?
Well, this burning copper represents the furnace of ultimate self-determination. Think of it like harnessing profound human resilience to push through absolute burnout. When you literally have nothing left, you consume your own exhaustion as fuel. Or think of an artist making an obsessive, completely self-contained sacrifice for a singular vision. The text specifically highlights shedding the mechanism of embarrassment. When the wanderer does this, he stops caring about how his desperate struggle looks to the universe. He matches the bitter irony of his adversity with an equally absolute absurdity. The decision to become an unconditioned fire, no matter the cost.
Now the curtain rises on Act 3, Three Dark Spectators, the climax of our play.
The wanderer is now burning with this impossible internal fire, and the menacing antagonists of the forest transform into a unified dark council hovering right at the midnight hour. Let's analyze these three entities. First, the cynical wit in a blood-stained jester's motley, casting these grotesque shadows. He offers terrifying approval because the wanderer has accepted the absurd punchline of existence and chosen to dance anyway. Then, the immense cosmic mind in a bone-white plague doctor's mask. It sees no more need for clinical extraction, accepting this new roaring equilibrium of a self-contained firestorm.
Finally, the Shadow Monster, the truth teller built from murdered futures. It simply ceases its violent expansion. These spirits absolutely do not falter, shatter, or dissolve under his heat. Instead, they just watch with this chilling, detached amusement because this mortal anomaly has successfully learned their cosmic language.
Which leads us directly into the absolute synthesis, the merging of the Wanderer and the Void. By absorbing the entirety of the chaotic forest into his glowing anatomy, the Wanderer completely eliminates the dualism between the self and the world. There's literally no separate silhouette left for the Shadow Monster to tear away, because the Wanderer has become the very darkness they police. But this creates a profound dramatic contrast. On one hand, you have the Wanderer's autonomy, a roaring equilibrium, sure, but ultimately a microscopic rebellion, a solitary spark. On the other hand, you have the spirit's cosmic permanence, the infinite weight of the void, ancient constants looking on with detached amusement. They respect him, absolutely, but they do not yield their authority. To them, this agonizing transformation is just a grand theatrical performance of the absolute I against an ocean of absolute night.
And finally, we reach our last act, the rise of the little god.
Think back to that quote from the very beginning. The heavy, uncanny silence falls, and the spirits speak with a singular, echoing resonance that literally rattles the burning copper inside the Wanderer's chest. Have your victory, little god. The title is a double-edged sword. It acknowledges his achieved sovereignty, yes, but it mocks him with his own cosmic insignificance. And then, the phantoms recede. The jester fades into dead leaves, the plague doctor melts into freezing fog, and the colossal monster contracts into the bleeding tree roots. They don't vanish out of defeat. They step aside out of a deep, profound, ironic respect.
As they recede, the suffocating undergrowth twists and parts, opening a narrow path deeper into the uncanny. The Wanderer is now permitted to traverse further into the uncharted territories of the absolute not I. So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Now that you understand how the self must literally become the fire to survive the dark, are you prepared to face the absolute unrelenting silence of the depths that follow?